Hey everyone, welcome back to Lumpy Studio, and today I'm talking about a new show on Netflix. It is called The Perfect Couple. This is actually based off of a book by Ellen Hilderbrand by the same name. I have not read the book, so I'm not really going to be talking about the book in this video, mostly just or all about the show. So the little summary says, when a lavish wedding ends in disaster before it can even begin, with a body discovered just hours before the ceremony, everyone in the wedding party is a suspect. So, I love murder mysteries. I always have. I think they're so engaging. And this type of murder mystery, too, is right up my alley. Um, to me, an issue I had with it is that it felt too much like Glass Onion Knives Out. Like, to me, I feel like they were able to do a better job telling the story in that 2 hour movie or whatever than they were able to do in this show that had 6 episodes. Now, my first complaint was that there were only 6 episodes because nowadays most shows can't do 6 episodes. You need at least eight, but preferably 10 or more to really tell a good story. And I think this show kind of suffers from that, but then again, I don't think it's as bad as some cases. I mean, this was a limited series, so there's not going to be a season two. They already confirmed that. I don't think it would get in even have the popularity to demand a season two, in my opinion. Um, but you have this mystery that lasts 6 episodes, and I think the pacing was a struggle because you had episode one, the ending reveal who got murdered, and then you had about 4 episodes introducing different clues and suspects and everything, and then you had the finale that revealed it. So it's I guess it's a decent length, but to me personally, I felt like there was too much going on in the show for me to keep up with everything with only 6 episodes because they had so many characters and not just the family. And of course, that's a very large family, but they had all these side characters like Shooter and Isabel and Gosha, who's not like a main character, but still, and then the detectives and the detective's daughter, Chloe, who's a love interest for Will, who Will wasn't even really important, I didn't think, in the whole thing, but I think there was just too many characters to keep track of, and that was a struggle. And I think they should have cut back on the amount of characters they had involved. Like some of them, like Shooter, he had no reason to be in this at all. Like being honest, because he was an outsider, and then they tried to give him importance with something I'll talk about in a minute that I did not like at all. Um, the Isabel character was completely useless. She didn't really do anything for the plot except have an affair with a more main character. And then you had Gosha, and I don't have any complaints with her. She's fine. And then the detectives, I guess they were fine. I mean, they didn't get a lot of screen time, but I guess it made sense for the show. I didn't think there needed to be that whole Will and Chloe's subplot with Chloe's dad. That was stupid. I mean, again, I think they were trying to navigate too many different storylines within the runtime that they had, and I think they should have gotten rid of some. One that they should have gotten rid of was that whole love triangle between Benji, Amelia, and Shooter. I think that was so stupid. And first of all, I had a hard time believing Benji and Amelia were in love and they like cared about each other because I did not get any chemistry and I did not get the feeling that they were soulmates, which that's what you're supposed to have with like a leading couple on the show. Or I don't even know. I guess they're really not the leading couple, which I'll talk about that one in a second. But a couple you're supposed to care about because it's their wedding, and they did a horrible job making us care about them because we don't. I thought Benji was a pretty bland main character, and Amelia was a little bit more interesting, but I thought for being the main characters, supposedly they weren't very interesting at all, which was a bummer because I wanted to be interested in them. It's just I didn't think either of them were great actors, and the acting isn't something I usually focus on, but this show had quite a few actors that just were not hitting that mark. They were missing the mark for sure. Um, yeah, the acting was not the greatest in this show, that's for sure. It was definitely one of its lower points, along with some of the writing. But you had a Benji and Amelia, and you could tell throughout it that they were falling out of love, but like we never saw them in love, so that's a struggle. And then you had this whole thing that randomly gets introduced with Amelia and Shooter, and it has nothing to do with the actual overall plot because Shooter's not really relevant to the plot at all until I guess the finale. But even then, he doesn't even need to be there at all. It could have been someone else. Um, they have him positioned as a family friend, and I guess they drop seeds that him and Greer have a close relationship or whatever throughout. And then they randomly just introduce the thing with Amelia, and then she literally cheats on Benji with him, and then I guess she ends up with neither at the end of the show. It just, to me, it all felt very rushed, and it made her not likable at all, and I just didn't really care about all, like, any of the three of them by the end of it. I just did not care. I was bored. Usually I like love triangles, but to me, this just came out of nowhere, and I don't even, it wasn't even like a full on love triangle for me to pick a team because they didn't position it as that way. Now maybe I would have been more interested if right off the get go there was a love triangle going on and whatnot. Maybe I would like that more. But because it just came in episode 4 and it only lasted a few episodes, it to me that pacing was really weird. I did not think we needed that storyline at all. And if they had just done a better job making Benji and Amelia a good couple, and Shooter wasn't involved at all, I think that all would have been fine. And so another thing is I thought the whole Tom and Abby thing was stupid because Tom was just the worst. Like I could not stand him throughout this whole show. And then Abby, from the very beginning, I knew there was something up with her. Now I didn't think she would turn out to be the murderer. My guess was it would be Tom or plot twist. It was Shooter. I don't know. I didn't even really have a clear suspect. I mean, I think I thought it would be Tom. I think that's the person I settled on, just because he's just such a shitty guy that it just all the clues were pointing to him, and then they introduced him as a suspect pretty late into the finale, and then they turned it back around that it was Abby. But I had issues with that. They just weren't like very likable to me, neither of them. So, and again, I guess you're gonna have unlikable characters, right? But like they were just the worst. But and then you had Greer and Tag, and this one I was actually fine with the overall premise of them being the perfect couple and everyone viewing them as the perfect couple, and then but they're not really the perfect couple, and they have to put on this facade and hide away their behind the scenes troubles with the two of them. Like I kind of like that, and that was pretty realistic. And they did a great job making us hate Tag because he was the worst, even worse than Tom. Um, and then the whole reveal that him and Merritt were a thing. All that was fine enough. I mean, still not like kind of like gross, but I mean that wasn't a turn off point to me. In fact, the Greer and Tag stuff was probably the most interesting part of the whole show. Their whole relationship, way better than the whole weird rush love triangle, and then the Tom and Abby. And then my other issue was the Will and Chloe because they seem like a sweet romance, but it ends up really going nowhere. I mean, I guess they're kind of together at the end, but the Will character to me just felt like a classic younger child who doesn't feel like he's taken seriously, and then he makes stupid decisions. Like there's just nothing original there, so I was not really a fan of his character, and I did not need to see him have his own subplot with this girl and her dad. I just was not really a fan. So again, throughout all of this, I think they really wanted us to believe it would either be Greer or Tag, but especially Greer, just because she's kind of the antagonist throughout some of this. Well, Tag's the main one, but they almost kind of have you thinking, is it going to be revealed that she's the mastermind behind all of it? Which you've already seen before, let's be honest, in so many shows, that it's actually, oh, the woman, which it does turn out to be a woman, but not Greer. And I was fine with it not being her. I think that would have been kind of predictable. So I'm glad they didn't have it be either Greer or Tag. And I was actually fine with the reveal of it being Abby. It still didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Like, why was she? Was she jealous? Because Merritt was getting attention that she wasn't getting. They never explained why she did it, which was kind of odd. I felt like it was so rushed because it wasn't revealed to like the last 15 minutes of the finale. And if they had revealed it like earlier on in the finale and given more time for everything to resolve, it would have been better, in my opinion. But the again, the pacing was so weird because they waited until the end of episode one to reveal who got murdered, and then they spent a decent amount of time building up all the clues and everything. They had almost every character involved somehow. But to me, I felt like there were also some plot holes that I'm not even going to get into. I also thought the whole thing with Greer and her brother was so weird. Like I didn't even care really about who this guy was or her connection to him. It was just an unneeded plot line. And then the fact that it's just her brother, but it's just kind of brushed to the side and not really a big deal. Like I thought that was pretty poor writing too, like not interesting at all. Um, again, I think there's just so many weird plot lines in this whole thing that we do not need at all. Another thing I thought was weird was their whole dance montage, at the beginning, and yeah, it was just so cringe. Like, I know they wanted it to be just something fun, but I think part of it was just because this show is just not really fun at all. It's pretty, it's there's so much tension thrown, and it's pretty tense throughout that like it's not really that type of show. And also, it's just seeing a bunch of adults dance is, I don't know, just wasn't really a fan of that personally. But I'm curious, like, do you guys like this show? I mean, have you read the book? Is the book any better than the show? I would be curious to hear your thoughts. Um, but I just wasn't a super big fan of the show, and I was kind of bored throughout certain parts. And again, some plot lines, like the whole love triangle, not love triangle, it just didn't make much sense to me why that was thrown in there. But one thing I am glad is that it's only one season confirmed, and we're not getting a season two because I don't think this like there's just nothing to tell unless they write in another murder or they expand on like make Tag a bigger villain or something. I don't know. There's just nothing they could do, and they really position it as a limited series. But I still think they could have done 10 episodes, and I don't know. But then again, I was also kind of getting tired of it, so maybe it was good that they ended on episode six. I don't know. Regardless, they still should have done better pacing throughout and all that jazz. But that's kind of where I'm going to end off. So, yeah, comment down below what you thought of this. Did you like it? Did you not? I'll be back next week. The Walking Dead podcast is returning along with a new episode of the Yearbookie. So, thanks everyone for listening to this, and bye everyone.